All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, September 24th, 2014. And this is Before the First Cup of Jules here on UCY.TV. How's everyone doing? I hope you're doing all right on this happy, sunny, chilly Wednesday morning. I don't even know if we have technical issues or not still this morning, so I guess we will have to see. I'm assuming that we're on air and everything is happy, so if we're not, you better let me know. I don't know, yesterday was quite the nightmare. Something that made me come back and say, I really don't want to do this another day, but I'm here. I have nothing to talk about, so I might just ramble here for a while. Not kind of into this. It sucks when I have to sit and babysit every single freaking second that goes out over air because of whatever was going on yesterday. I swear at first I thought that maybe the encoding server scorching. I was like, well, there was dust in there and probably was just an old machine that got hot. But then when our Skype server started having problems, and the automation started having problems, and then I see RBN going up and down and their stream going away, and it just happens to be on the day of us finally launching attacks on Syria, something that we've been drooling about for the last 3+ almost 4 years. It just leads me to believe that maybe Cyber Patrol sends out their little ping bombs like they said they were going to. If you remember in that article that we read out of Wired magazine over, I don't even know if it was this summer. It might have been last summer. We spent an entire 4 days reading about Keith Alexander, the former head of the NSA, and him talking about the different types of cyber warfare that they were working on. And one of them was to be able to attack computers remotely using keywords and such, and literally blow up hardware. And I remember I actually read that section of the story multiple times trying to understand what that meant, the way he had it worded. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to start paying attention to more alternative establishments. I mean, we've seen a few waves now where there have been mass infections. And of course, we know that a lot of these intelligence agencies have been working with third-party companies for quite a number of years now, because it even came out in the New York Times that they have been having spyware written and installing it on computers of journalists and things. And, I'm trying to remember where I put that story. There was a couple days ago I was going to go down that whole track. We had looked at some of the surveillance software, but I think it's probably long lost in the feed now. It's been probably a week or two, and we all know how fast news runs. Some days it's just unbelievable. So hold on, let me get out to my page, and we are going to take a look. I honestly never even made it through the news from last night. And late yesterday afternoon, I finally made it through the news from the night before because there was just so freaking much. So we're probably going to back up here a day and take a look at some of what's been going on, because there was some weirdness. I saw the tuberculosis scare in Texas. I guess there were over 700 babies that have been exposed over a multi-year period because of staff that was infected. I don't know what the long-term results are of an infant being exposed to tuberculosis. Is it permanent? Does anybody know that? I thought tuberculosis was something, especially if you were older and your immune system was compromised, that maybe it would be something that could get in there. But I always thought tuberculosis was something that once you got it, it might take some strong antibiotics. Well, you know what? Here. Let's call myself, and I guess we'll find out. We'll share and learn together. Hold on. This is always the hard part, is trying to remember who I am. Oh, it's early. Here we go. I am very tired today, and I got a good 8.5 hours sleep, and I'm still beat. I just can't shake this. All right. There we go. All right, let's check out this tuberculosis scare. Hopefully this computer works, because it wasn't yesterday.
Tuberculosis scare in Texas. Hundreds of patients at an El Paso hospital nursery were exposed to the bacteria. An employee at the Providence Memorial Hospital exposed more than 700 infants and 40 employees beginning a year ago. The Department of Public Health says the infected worker tested positive in August. TB is spread through coughing and sneezing. Patients' families are being contacted.
It's all right. This still doesn't tell me. Let's look this up. Because what's a big deal? I mean, I know they were talking about tuberculosis coming over the border, and it's always something like in a hospital, especially in a VA hospital. It's an upper respiratory. I know that. It takes out older, sick people. Tuberculosis cure. How's that? But I didn't think that it was incurable, that's for sure. Oh, yeah, pulmonary. Well, there's pulmonary TB. And that requires multiple antibiotics. Tuberculosis management. It's an infectious disease. The standard short treatment for TB. Hold on, I got to kill this phone. I still haven't figured out that microphone issue. The standard short course treatment for TB is isoniazid, along with pyridoxal phosphate to obviate periphery neuropathy caused by isoniazid, ramsulfan, also known as Rampant in the United States, pyrazinamide, and ethyl mutabutal for 2 months. What the hell? Then isoniazid and racemupin, rifampicin, rifampicin alone for a further 4 months. Well, I got to say, the treatment sounds pretty miserable, whatever that is, and that's the short course. The patient is to be considered free of living bacteria after 6 months, although there's still a relapse rate of 7%. For latent tuberculosis, the standard treatment is 6 to 9 months of isoniazid alone. Now, there was something here in looking at this isoniazid. The short course was isoniazid along with pyroxidol phosphate to obviate periphery neuropathy caused by... So periphery neuropathy, what is that? Some sort of neurological disorder because of the antibiotic? Or if that's what that is, that isoniazid is on iadzid. That's what it's called. Way too many vowels in there. And 10 point letters, scores. I'm not really sure what those are. It says if the organism is known to be fully sensitive, then treatment with isoniazid ramphip. This would be great to get a bunch of people to try and say these all 10 times fast. Like, wait, I'm going to copy and paste these right into chat. If you go to Wikipedia and search tuberculosis management, you'll find the article I'm looking at. I mean, these are absolutely impossible to say. Yes, it turned into morning chemistry. Hope you're enjoying it. I want to make sure that everybody's brain is working. Mine isn't, but that's how I get it working, is I challenge it really fast and really early until it hurts. It's like exercise, right? Well, I don't know. I really don't care about tuberculosis. I was just wondering whether or not it was a permanent, 700 infants had been exposed. So what exactly does that mean? Because I didn't really get much of anything out of that clip. Did you? So obviously there's going to have to be some pretty extensive treatment. And I got to tell you too, antibiotics in children is not always a good idea. You want to be able to avoid that if at all possible. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. I'm sure that I know when my daughter got sick when she was real little, she got bitten by a tick, and she had the bullseye too. So we had to do a whole bunch of antibiotics, and I don't remember which one it was, but cephalosporin, I believe, is what they use in little kids. And she kept throwing it up; it wouldn't stay down. It was the liquid. I think she was only like 2, so it was not. It was a big deal. And if you know anything about Lyme's disease. And I did a lot of research because of stuff that I had found back from the 80s after I'm certain my mom was exposed when we were up in Thousand Islands. And I had found evidence that it had been in the mosquitoes because they'd been doing some sort of crazy experiment, which doesn't surprise me either. And I found that in a FOIA document when we were researching them spraying low-income populations with radiation back in the 50s. There happened to be, a whole bunch of other experiments that were listed out in the document as well. And one was the mosquitoes with the Lyme's disease being released up in the Thousand Islands. Right when we'd been there camping, we used to go up there quite often, and I do distinctly remember, it was like a mosquito fest. The second the sun started to dip below the trees, it was kamikaze. You could not even be outside. We had a big screen room on the front of the camper. It was one of those pop-up campers, so it really wasn't even that comfortable. Kind of sucked, but it was fun as a kid. But my mom got really, really, really super sick and then got to the point where she was so crippled up she couldn't even move. She was in so much pain in all of her joints. And it was long before they really even had any clue what Lyme's disease was. It was right at the very beginning. But long story short, because of all that, I had spent a lot of years doing research into it and trying to understand how it worked. And then, of course, with my daughter getting that bullseye and the bite by what we assume was a tick that was infected, I really spent some time looking at it. And the thing that's so messed up about Lyme's disease is that it's if you do a search on it and you really look into the biology of it, it's very foreign. At least from what I've seen, it uses what they call a spigot, I think is how it's pronounced. And it's a spiral little corkscrew thing. And they hide very well. They're very stealthy. And you got to hit it hard and fast with the antibiotics right up front, because if you don't, it gets way deep down into your joints and it can sit dormant there for 20 years until, it starts to really cause some massive destruction. And so you got to kill it right away. But what's interesting, and I don't even know how did I even get off here? I'm going to have to steer the ship back because I really don't want to be here. But one of the things that's interesting is those little corkscrews, they literally get into your joints and they burrow down in there. And honestly, in my day, I took AP everything in school. So I was in chemistry and biology. And you guys know, if you've listened to the show, I'm a little scientist at heart, but as a hobby, I should have probably gone into science, went in engineering instead. Close enough. But that's stuff that I've paid a lot of attention to. And I have not seen anything even similar to that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at that whole Lyme disease thing, if there ever was a candidate for Plum Island and GMO, I would say most certainly. And by the way, Darren, if you're out there, I got a note on the UCY Facebook page from a couple weeks ago. I guess I must have talked about the Lyme disease back a few weeks ago as well. And I had a listener offer to start digging into that and seeing what kind of research they could find that connected Plum Island and Lyme disease. And I dropped him a note. I don't know if he saw it, but if you're out there listening, Darren, definitely please. That would help me a lot. It's something that I find very interesting, and I think that it needs to be exposed. I've looked very long and hard for that FOIA document we found a few years ago that, like I said, we were looking at spraying populations with radiation and happened to stumble across the Lyme disease mosquitoes in the Thousand Islands in that same document. And I have not been able to dig that up again since I've been talking about it. So I would really appreciate it. I also would like someone to take a look for me. You know that they're moving. And we've read a few stories about this. So they were in the process of building the new Plum Island in the heart of Kansas. Wow, why does that sound like a good idea? And, we called that out quite a number of times. And damn, all those videos are gone. But there was a great video that at one point they came out in mainstream and they said, maybe it's not such a good idea to be moving Plum Island from off the coast with all of these killer genetically modified biowarfare animal diseases and putting it right into the heart of the heartland of our food and sustainability basket in Kansas. And then even better, something I had never thought of, and color me purple, because I try to put myself in the mindset of thinking of every possible thing that could go wrong so I could plan for it. But I never even thought that Kansas happens to be right in the heart of tornado country. And that article did bring that up. So, seems really smart to me to put a lab with lots of highly deadly, virulent diseases in the middle of Heartland where it could get hit by a tornado, shit spread everywhere. That would be great. It's all right, topic change. I'm not going to stay there now. Where do we go from here? Honestly, here, you want to talk a little bit more? And I did see a couple stories on this, and really I had to raise an eyebrow because why would they do this? This is almost as stupid as TEPCO and Fukushima just endlessly releasing radiation into the ocean. 45 liters. So I don't know. I'm not really good at the conversion. I always kind of push back on the metric system. But I do know what a liter bottle of pop looks like. So 45 of those puppies, 45 liters of live, not killed, not attenuated, live polio virus released into Belgian rivers. And don't they make a lot of beer in Belgium? Live polio? What? We talked about polio not too long ago because I had mentioned that my dad's cousin back in the 50s actually got the polio vaccine, and back then it was the live vaccine, and he got it. Back when I was a kid in the 70s, I remember we got killed polio. So that was like the newfangled thing, and I don't know of too many of my friends that ended up getting polio, so I guess that was a good thing. But why would you be dumping live polio virus? And I haven't read enough about polio virus to know what type of environment that they live in, or if they can live outside the body or whatever. Can they get into fish and then be eaten by people? And, who knows? But how in 45 liters dumped into a Belgian river? Aren't there protocols for properly disposing of deadly viruses? I think so. Yeah, I do. And I mean internationally, too. So let's read the story. The European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. So that's the ECDC, unlike our CDC. And it seems like they're learning out of the same playbook now. In its Communicable Disease Threats Report from September 11th, 2014, reported about an accidental release. Of 45 liters of not just normal, but concentrated live polio virus solution into the environment. Honestly, it does sound like they're learning from the CDC playbook. And guys, don't think for a second that all of this dumb assness with these highly virulent materials isn't to make you feel normalized over the fact that, yeah, we do dumb shit with infectious shit all the time. So when a pandemic of some crazy stuff just happens to start popping up, you're not even going to question it. You're going to say, well, damn, maybe it was the 45 liters of polio that got dumped into our water system. I mean, how is this being allowed to happen? Who are these people that they have such a lack of training that they're leaving vials of anthrax sitting on top of a filing cabinet for 45 years? Or dumping 45 liters of polio, live concentrated polio, into the rivers. On September 2nd, 2014, following a human error, 45 liters of concentrated live polio virus solution was released into the environment in Rixensart City, Belgium, by the pharmaceutical company, oh, GlaxoSmithKline. So, yeah, it was accidental, I am sure, as half the population becomes exposed to live concentrated polio. Or, hey, you know what? Now it's in your environment. You guys got to line up and get these newfangled polio vaccines that we've been working on with RNAi technology. Just saying. Seems a little suspicious to me. The liquid was conducted directly to a water treatment plant, Rosieres, and released after treatment in River Lasne. I don't know. I don't know any of these rivers in Belgium. In the River Lasne, Lasne, affluent of River Dial, which is affluent of the Ischot Scheldt River. The estimated viral rejection of the live virus serotype 3 was 10 to the 13th cell culture infectious dose, which this means nothing to me, 50%. GlaxoSmithKline is currently testing an experimental Ebola vaccine on volunteers in Britain and the United States. Now, we did listen to that video. I was talking about what a dumbass woman would line up and be one of the first people ever to volunteer herself to be injected with the new Ebola secret serum RNAi vaccine. In the United States, I believe it was the 4 doctors. I have not seen that there are any open trials yet on people, but guess what? In the GlaxoSmithKline pipeline, it showed that vaccination was ready to rock and roll for human testing. So I would love to see. And why did they just mention Ebola in the middle of a polio article? Like, is that supposed to make them all better? Because, like, well, we released 45 liters of this live concentrated polio into your water system. But, hey, we're the ones that have the experimental Ebola vaccine, so it's all okay. I'm telling you, though, they do. You watch. There'll be a huge outbreak. Wasn't it just like polio vaccines they gave all the kids in Pakistan? And a whole bunch of them just got polio? Hold on. Whose vaccines were those? Polio, I think it was Pakistan. Maybe it was Afghanistan. Pakistan. Government decides to set up a polio operations center in Pakistan 1 hour ago. Wow. Polio busters. Yeah, back through June, July. Now they're saying that most of Pakistan is polio free. So what the hell country? Hold on. I know I read this not too long ago. Mass polio vaccination. And I thought a whole bunch, maybe it was Syria even, a whole bunch of kids came down with it. Oh, Iraq. That was August 11th, 2014. Iraq has launched a mass polio immunization campaign to over 4 million children under the age of 5. Another story, April 6, 2014, polio vaccination campaigns commenced in Syria, Iraq, and Egypt today. We also saw Pakistan's almost polio-free. Here's one from August 13th. And December 9th, 2013, from the World Health Organization, over 23 million children to be vaccinated in mass polio immunization campaign across the Middle East. 23 million children. Syria, they're going after 2.2 million. We saw Iraq, Egypt. Do they give the other countries here? And, you know, are they currently right now in Syria as we're bombing the crap out of them? Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look. I know there was a case just recently. Maybe if Brandon's listening, he can drop me a note as to what country it was that they just had that big outbreak after they gave everyone the vaccinations. And yeah, there's an oral and there is the shot. And the oral, that was the attenuated, but it's oral is live attenuated vaccine. They also do that with the bird flu, I remember, where it was kind of like it was a weakened but a live virus, and you did it through your nose. Intranasal. They did it as a liquid. It wasn't an injection. And one of the things that I had read about that bird flu live attenuated virus that went through intranasal was that any children that got that were actually shedding the virus for still like a week or 10 days after receiving the vaccination. Whereas when you receive the injection of the killed virus, you were not a typhoid Mary. But again, I wasn't going to spend my day talking about illnesses. We were going to talk about some other stuff. Anyway, let me finish the story about accidentally dumping the 45 liters of concentrated live polio virus into the Belgian River. Says the only accessible risk assessment report was the one that the High Council of Public Health that concluded that the risk of infection for the population exposed to the contaminated water is extremely low due to the high level of dilution and the high vaccination coverage in Belgium. So, yes, just like radiation, you dump it into large amounts of water and hey, it's all diluted anyway. It doesn't matter. And since 95% of the population in Belgium has been vaccinated against polio, they are assuming that 95% of the people will be safe. Now, we've seen that many times. How many people here have known of children that have gotten the newfangled chickenpox vaccination and then the kid got chickenpox when they were exposed to it? How many people here, me, had a measles vaccination and then in college got measles? Me. How many people have read stories recently about these large outbreaks in populations of vaccinated children? And now they're really starting to question what the purpose is, what the point is. Is it the vaccinations that are causing these? Is it because you need booster shots? Is this intentional? And there's definitely some big questions. Is this intentional that these vaccines in some locations don't seem to be working the way that they used to or the way that they should? Because back in the 70s and the 80s, I got to tell you, if you take a look at what we were exposed to back then compared to what they're exposing the children to now, I mean, old school vaccines were using almost like a homeopathy, right? Anyone who's gotten allergy shots for years like I did, that was the whole concept behind it. Like almost like homeosis, right? Where you're exposed to something that might not be good for you, but you're exposed to it in low doses. And as your body becomes used to it, it starts to build almost an immunity. Like it gets, so it's not overreacting any longer with your immune system. It's able to protect you. I mean, maybe a little bit different because the homeosis where you're doing low dose and then building up an immunity. Well, I guess so. Yeah, because you're still building up it's your immune system. One is external threats. One would be internal threats. Like if you were looking at an autoimmune disease, something else I dealt with. So I spent a lot of time looking at the immune system and how it worked from different threats. But like back in the old days, before they started doing all these crazy adjuvants and things, trying to supercharge then the vaccinations and then trying to supercharge our immune system, which is what this new round of vaccinations, these brand spanking new 2.0 humans coming in 30 years vaccines are going to do. They go in and literally, with this RNA interference, they go in and literally reprogram your DNA to then respond in a certain manner to external stimuli or external invaders. And like I said, they can turn shit on and off in your DNA. You definitely don't want that stuff in your body. But in the old days, It used to be like basic cause and effect. You know, you don't want to get, oh, I don't know, measles. Though I think there was something wrong with the measles. I know that came out like before I got sick in college. That actually came out that we should probably all go get boosters because they had given us some sort of killed measles vaccination that then they discovered wasn't as effective. And I don't know, measles wasn't that bad. I wasn't that sick, but I remember having the whole inside of my mouth was swollen with red dots everywhere, and my throat hurt really bad. But back in the old school days, it really was just basic science. It was, let's inject you with a little bit of something that your body is going to then be able to recognize because maybe you've never been exposed to it, and then build a defense against it. It was using the body's own defense mechanisms to fight. And, before they started putting all the preservatives and the aluminums and the freaking, what's that stuff called that they embalm people with? Formaldehyde and all that other garbage in there, it might not have been such a bad thing. And I think we only got, I don't remember right now the exact number, but I had found a chart at one time that compared the number of vaccinations that we received as children in the 1970s versus the number of vaccinations that kids now in the 2000s receive. And it was like 2 or 3 times as many. And not just different kinds, but frequencies as well. And also back then, I remember that my group of kids going to school, we were one of the very first to get that MMR, which I believe is that combo vaccination, measles, mumps, rubella, I think is what that stands for. And that might have been actually because then I ended up getting measles years later. Maybe that was why. Maybe they wanted us to get the measles alone because maybe it didn't have as much effectiveness when getting it as a combo. But, those combo vaccines, that MMR especially has had fingers pointed to it now for quite a number of years as being responsible possibly for some autism cases. And I can also tell you that in the animal world, I had a cat, Casey. He was a ginger kitty. And just like ginger people, ginger kitties, I think, are very sensitive to things. People with light hair and light skin tend to have more health issues and issues with the sun and sensitivities than people that tend to have darker skin and darker hair. It's just something that I've noticed through my own observations. I have family members that are very light skinned, and then I have pretty dark skin and dark hair, because my dad is really dark. My mom is really light, and I mean, I just growing up, I've noticed my mom always was super more sensitive to things than the rest of my family. But the same thing with cats. I've had cats my whole life, and so I've paid attention to that. And it seems like the gingery cats with the lighter hair tend to have more sensitivities. And my one cat, Casey, was a ginger kitty, and I will never forget. I'm trying to remember what the name of the vaccine was for the cat. And I was very careful about vaccines with my cats. I had long discussions with my veterinarians, and I had decided that since they were indoor cats, we would only do one round. And I honestly got the veterinarians to agree with me that if you have indoor cats, that it's the veterinary association's recommendation that they get vaccinated every year, but they don't really agree with that because, no, your immunity lasts a lot longer than just 1 year. And, of course, when you start getting those adjuvants added, then that causes irritation to the immune system. It can extend your immunity beyond what they said, but it also causes issues. And in the issues of animals with that aluminum adjuvant, I've talked about this many, 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 many times before, but that caused the sarcoma in my cat with the 3-year rabies vaccine. That was something that they recommended that we never get in your pet. So just know that 1 year versus 3-year. If you can get the intranasal for the pet versus the injection, it's way better. A lot of states, rabies vaccines are mandatory. So regardless if you want to get them a vaccine or not, sometimes it's even for cats required by license. I know for dogs it is, but never get the 3-year. My vet was part of the Cornell University study on that, and my cat's leg with the huge sarcoma in it after getting that 3-year vaccine became part of the study. So it was pretty proven to me that, and it was exactly where the vaccine had gone in. I mean, it was, there was no doubt about it. And they had known about that for a while. And the veterinarian had said that's exactly why they no longer give vaccines in the neck, by the way. That's why they give one in one leg, one in the other. So then if you end up with issues like that, they can A, identify which vaccine did it, and B, they can amputate the leg if it turns into a sarcoma, unlike if it were a sarcoma in the neck at the base of the brain. Anyway, I went off on a real big tangent, but let me just get back to the light-haired, light-skinned, and the multi-virus vaccinations. So in the humans, we had the MMR, and the animals, oh, man, I was hoping it would come back to me. I don't remember. Somebody, actually, I'll look in chat. Maybe someone remembers. There's one in animals that there's a three-way, and the three-way vaccination, I found my cat after receiving that in a hamper, unconscious, with foam coming out of his mouth and a horrible fever. So if that's any indication, I mean, if it did that to a cat that was sensitive, and I never let him get that vaccine, I almost lost him. I had to give him baby Benadryl. It was pretty unbelievable. But if that's any indication for that doing it to a cat with a three virus vaccine, you know, what do you think that things like MMR are doing to kids? You know, just because you're not seeing the research doesn't mean that there isn't some bad stuff going on. And I mean, I know most of us don't trust these bastards anymore for any of this shit. But anyway, all I was getting back to is back in the day, back in the 70s, I think that vaccines probably, even though they were doing some crazy research and stuff, I think that they probably were a little bit safer than they are now. Absolutely, though, if you look into the research now, I wouldn't be touching any of this shit with a 10-foot pole. So as they dump 45 liters of polio into the waterways in Belgium, but then says, okay, because 95% of the population is vaccinated, we're going to turn the ship back now. We're heading back up that polluted river. Think about this. What an interesting statement that is. So we've released all this into the environment, but because you've been good Belgians and 95% of you all lined up for your vaccination at one point in the past, you are all safe from the danger. But you 5% of dissenters who wouldn't line up, you will die. You will die and be sick with polio. I mean, is it me? Is that crazy to think that? Is that what's going on? Is there going to be another incident like this now? Next time, maybe in the United States, for some other crazy pathogen released in large scale into waterways or airways, and then they're going to go, hey, all you great Americans who lined up to get your crazy vaccines, just know you guys are all be safe. But everybody else out there, you unvaccinated rebels, you insurgents, we're coming for you because now you are a risk to the vaccinated population. I mean, I almost think that the scare with the schools with that enterovirus, EV68, you know, what was bizarre about that is that the last time there was an outbreak was in 1968. And I saw a clip yesterday, the day before. They're like, oh, you know, it's not really very clear as to why all of a sudden this enterovirus is raising its ugly head again. And there's such a huge outbreak. We don't know where this came from. All right. So here, we're going to I guess we'll stick on poisonous shit for now. So the CDC, right on the heels of this 45 liters. And wait, do we need to like continue anymore? Let me just see. Oh, hold on. Let me kill this because we're going to do a little bit more on this GlaxoSmithKline. On September 8th, 2014, the Federal Public Service Health, Food Chain Safety and Environment in Belgium confirmed that samples of mud and water taken from the Reser's treatment plant, River Lausanne and River Dial, all tested negative for the presence of poliovirus. Well, that's good. Where did it all go? According to the ECDC assessment, the accidental release into the environment of large amounts of large polio, concentrated live polio virus, does represent a risk to public health in cases of susceptible populations where they could be exposed to contaminated waters or mud. The contamination of rivers depends on the effectiveness of treatment in the Rosier's treatment plant to prevent viruses from being released. Lausanne, and Dial rivers are joining to the Ischut and the Scheldt rivers, which flow in the southwestern part of the Netherlands. Saul, if you're out there, where various Orthodox Protestant communities present a lower polio vaccination coverage before reaching the North Sea. So various Orthodox Protestants in the Netherlands, look out. Because you haven't gotten your polio vaccination, it's coming for you. That's what that just said, didn't it? Drug maker GlaxoSmithKline was fined $492 million on September 19th for what? Bribing doctors in China in the biggest such penalty ever imposed by a Chinese court. Wait a second. I thought in China they beheaded people like that. They do. I think in that scam where they were putting antifreeze into the children's toothpaste, that's exactly what happened. The guys who owned the factory were killed as their punishment. The company's British former country manager, Mark Riley, was sentenced to prison. This was in China, GlaxoSmithKline. This case highlights the widespread use of payments to doctors and hospitals by sellers of drugs and medical equipment in a poorly funded health system that Chinese leaders have promised to improve. Yes, except that in the United States it's been made legal with the passage of Obamacare, and then Congress deciding that Obamacare isn't considered a health care plan. Remember that. Kickbacks are legal now. They are no longer protected. And so your doctor can be schmoozed by any pharmaceutical agent. How many times have you gone to the doctor's office and you're sitting in the waiting room with another 50 people who are all coughing and hacking around you? You're 25 minutes late for your appointment and you're sitting there because you came from work and you're like, holy shit, my boss is going to be pissed because I was supposed to be out of here already. And who walks in the door and gets to go meet with the doctor before the 20 patients sitting in the waiting room? But the pharmaceutical rep who's going to offer him trips and hookers. That happens. I've been told from the inside that does happen, but I've seen it happen with my own two eyes. And it happens in all the different industries. The federal contractor industry, it happens as well. So anyway, yeah, GlaxoSmithKline, who's working on the Ebola vaccine, who accidentally released 45 liters of concentrated live polio vaccine into Belgian rivers, who have been convicted of bribing doctors and hospitals in China, happens to be the company that is currently testing their new experimental Ebola vaccine on volunteers in the United States. Wow, does that make me feel safe now? I don't know if I dropped this in your chat or not, but I will. That was a pretty good story about the polio virus. I don't know if anyone seems to care about that stuff, but I do. I follow that shit pretty closely. All right, so now let me get back to where I was going to go, if I can find which feed I was on. So we're going to cut over now to the CDC. The CDC has come out on the tails of this, and they've claimed now, and I've seen a couple different numbers. I saw, and I hate that. I saw 20,000 Ebola cases coming in the near future. Then I saw like 40,000. Well, CDC has revised their numbers again.
New estimates by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are warning that the number of Ebola cases could reach 1.4 million by mid-January in just 2 nations, unless efforts to curb the outbreak are significantly ramped up.
For each month of delay, there's a big increase in the number of cases, and it gets that much more difficult to control the epidemic.
Since the first cases were reported 6 months ago, the total cases in West Africa have reached an estimated 5,800 illnesses and over 2,800 deaths. The CDC's predictions are based partly on the assumption that Ebola cases are being underreported.
If you get enough people effectively isolated, the epidemic can be stopped.
In recent weeks, health officials worldwide have stepped up efforts to provide aid, but the virus is still spreading. Last week, the U.S. announced it would build more than a dozen medical centers in Liberia and send 3,000 troops to help. Bob McCall, Associated Press.
Yes, we're going to build all kinds of clinics and send the troops.
Most of us
Oh,
are
hold on.
first time.
Playlist. All right, wait. Don't jump the gun. I'm not done talking about this. They were just like running ahead of me. Yeah, so we're building all these clinics and we're sending all these troops, and you know, that's just so great as Google is running ahead with Project Calico to make you live more than 100 years. All right, so here we go. This is that dumbass woman. We listened to her the other day at Oxford University, lining up to be the first one to get this Ebola vaccine.
061.
There's a new type of vaccine for Ebola. We've not taken anything from the Ebola virus and put it into the vaccine. Instead, we've been able to synthesize one of the genes from Ebola, one of many, put that into a carrier that we know is safe and has been used in other vaccines against other diseases. So we're pretty confident this will be safe. And remarkably, in the experimental animal studies the vaccine was used in, it was very effective. After the first volunteer today, we're hoping to vaccinate the next 59 as quickly as possible over the next month or so here in Oxford. We will move rapidly, probably in the next few weeks, to trials in West Africa, similar numbers of volunteers. And once those are completed, we should be ready to take a decision on whether this vaccine could be actually deployed in the affected countries, meaning by the end of this year.
Yes, by the end of this year, as they predict, there's going to be, how many did he say? 1.4 million cases by January. So good thing you're working hard on this. So I missed that when I heard that clip the other day, that there were 59 more in the UK that they had lined up and ready to go to get this vaccine. And then they were going to go, of course, down to the breadbasket where this is all percolating with fruit bats flying everywhere, and go start injecting Africans. Now, of course, if anyone has looked into RNAi, and if you've listened to the show for a while, we've done quite a bit on RNAi, but just remember this, okay, as they're injecting us with this new fangled science, and it is, we've never had this ability before, just recently, to be able to go in and start manipulating our DNA on a grand scale. Just remember.
And Homo sapien 2.0, according to a researcher at the Global Brain Institute, a completely new human species will inhabit the Earth in just over 30 years. Now, this evolutionary step could be comparable to the transition from apes to humans. So what kind of people will we become? Well, they say our biological clocks will undergo dramatic changes, which will allow us to live longer and give birth at an older age. And of course, technology will continue to make our lives easier. All kinds of microchip implants will be placed in our ears and our fingers and make many devices completely obsolete. But this dependence on technology has its drawbacks, of course. In the future, humans are going to have to compete for jobs against, you guessed it, machines and cyborgs. And since most of the work will already be done and automated by robots, a sedentary way of life will ultimately take over and make us all a little bit bigger.
But hey, if we can live to 100, like it just makes me laugh. So a sedentary lifestyle, if anyone's ever seen the movie Wall-E, where everyone's just kind of big pears that float around on these little magnetron moving devices with these screens in front of your face, and that's how you communicate, just like it is now kind of with cell phones, where everyone's just kind of staring at their smart device. But listen, I mean, we'll be able to live to 100. So, hey, it'll be all right if we can't walk.
Planet is a crowded place, and it will be getting more crowded in the years to come. The world population is now about 7 billion, but that is expected to jump to about 12 billion in the year 2100. Part of that is due to average life expectancy reaching 100 years old or more by the end of the century. All those people will create more demands for food and put greater demands on the environment. In the October.
Now, let's just stop here for a second and think logically about what we're hearing. So we know right now that they're crying the blues, saying that there isn't enough food, there isn't enough water, and oh, look it, we have droughts, and we've had to cull all these animals, and there's all these horrible diseases, and oh my God, we have global warming! And that's why dengue fever is breaking out again in Japan for the first time since 1945. You know, they're blaming all this stuff on having too many people on the planet. They're telling us that we got to cut the carbon footprint. Anyone who ever saw Bill Gates talk at the TED conference with these equations saying that one of these numbers has to go to zero and one was carbon output, like breathing. You know what I'm talking about. So if now they are expecting that the world population is going to explode to 12 billion in the next 100 years, but we're working to extend the human lifetime, which will be why we have 12 billion people, what makes you really think? I mean, anyone who's out there who thinks that this longevity technology is for you and me really needs to reassess something. Because I'll tell you what, there isn't going to be 12 billion people. They're not going to be giving life extension technology to the Liberians. Trust me, they won't. They'll be giving life extension 1.0 technology to the Liberians to see how they grow, you know, like I always say, the third arm out of their head. But it's not going to be so the Liberians can live to 100 years old. Absolutely not. Because, hey, there's not enough food and water on the continent of Africa. Isn't that what they claim? Unless, of course, Monsanto gets involved. And then our GMO crops can support all of these millions of people.
Issue of Atlantic magazine, contributing editor Greg Easterbrook writes about the consequences of rising longevity. Greg, good morning.
Good morning.
I've never heard someone say we need to cure age. It's such an interesting way to think about aging. Why are we seeing people live longer, though, at base?
Oh, it's been going on for almost 2 centuries. There's an eerie chart that we show in Atlantic Monthly since the year 1840. With each passing year, the newly born live 3 months longer than the previous year. And this holds during wars, during epidemics, doesn't seem to link to any particular event, good or bad. Worldwide, everyone's steadily living longer, and the trend is likely to continue.
You've got Google, which announced its Calico project aimed at ending aging and even death. And then you've got this group called the Buck Institute that's also studying aging. What are they actually finding?
Well, Google just brought its billions of dollars into this field. And of course, when we hear the word Google, we all say, oh, wow, Google, this is exciting. Well, it is exciting. The Buck Institute has only existed for 15 years. It has a dreamlike headquarters in Marin County, California, the hippest place on earth, overlooking San Francisco Bay. And they're working on ways to reduce not just aging, but to reduce decline of health and aging, in other words, to increase health span, not just lifespan. A generation ago, a researcher would have said, you're out of your mind to think that aging can be cured. Now that thought only seems somewhat crazy, not completely crazy.
It seems so logical that they would think we should get centenarians together and study them. A place like Japan, where you see so many people living so much longer, have they been able to learn something by studying the group that ages longest?
Studying the oldest people has not been the gold mine that researchers had hoped. There's a federal project called the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging that's been ongoing since the 1950s, and it has not been able to figure out why some people live longer than others, whether it's genetic, environment. It's still a mystery.
So what's some of the most promising research that's being done now then?
Well, there is some hope that biotech will lead to a breakthrough in slowing the rate of aging so that the chronic diseases that we associate with aging, heart disease, arthritis, Alzheimer's, etc., chronic diseases of aging are already the top 4 killers in the United States. If we could slow those, you'll never eliminate those diseases, but if their onset could be slowed, people would enjoy their retirement years more. They'd be able to work longer, contribute, support themselves. The goal of anti-aging research is not immortality. That will never happen. But to slow the onset of the chronic diseases of aging, that actually seems fairly promising.
I think a lot of people, though, would think, I don't know if I really want to live to 100. It sounds like this new research, though, is saying it's not necessarily about lifespan. There's some component of health span, making you actually be 100 but be healthy and fit during that time.
Exactly. If you could live to 100 in a debilitating condition, staring off into space, being attended by some robot, who would want that? But if you're
Me.
third of life and you can enjoy life and contribute and work, I think most people would opt for that.
Fascinating. It's a fascinating story, Greg, and your study shows that if we continue at the present pace, we'll live to be 100 on average in 2084. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Greg Easterbrook, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I wonder how long that the human 2.0 lives to that we're going to have in the next 30 years. And here's the thing. Living longer so we can work, is that what he just said? That's not my plan. I don't want to be working to 100. Do you? I don't even know why I went there. I did look up that Buck Institute, and that's the I hadn't heard of these guys before. Buck Institute for Research on Aging. I wanted to see who was involved in this. I know that there is another institute that is up in Washington or Seattle. Hold on, I got to kill this connection again. That has one of the, I don't remember his name, one of the guys that started Microsoft with Gates. He's actually in charge of it as well, and they're doing all kinds of biotech stuff there. So this Buck Research Institute on Aging actually started in 91. Wow, that was such a great year. That was about when they started messing around with nanotechnology as well. But let's take a look at who the leadership is. Brian Kennedy, PhD, CEO, and President. He is from the University of Washington in Seattle. He also earned his PhD at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Yes. He's a native of Louisville, Kentucky. But I don't know. I mean, MIT, that's a pretty good connection, isn't that, where they're doing a lot of the brain research as well? Let's look at who the Board of Trustees is. And it doesn't go there. I don't know. All this stuff is pretty creepy. And of course, you know that this all has to do with manipulating our DNA. And like I said, it isn't you or me that's going to be slated to live to 100 at all. I think it's going to be more like he said, that you're going to be sitting there drooling in your bed with a robot helper. I wonder how long this is. This is 14 minutes. Health span imperative, the aging of America. And, think about it. All these baby boomers right now are getting older. And my parents, my dad tends to not go to the doctor. My mom does go to the doctor. And the biggest difference that I can see is that every time she goes, they want to give her another pill. She's finally kind of gotten hip to that each time they give her a pill, it has another side effect that then makes something else bad. So she has been working on trying to find natural ways to cure her issues. And I have to say, she's actually listened to me a little bit. Tried a few of the things that I've recommended and has had great results. So that makes me happy. All right. The one other thing I wanted to look at here, and then we're going to actually get to the real news. But this is stuff that goes on behind the scenes that isn't typically in our headlines. Here's an article I ran across after I heard that clip that is titled, "What WTF is Calico? And why does Google think its mysterious new company can defy aging?" Now remember, Google also has Kurzweil, had Regina Duggan, and I really need to see where she is now and what she is doing, but she was the former director from DARPA. They bought their 8 robotics firms at Google this past year from the Department of Defense. And they have Calico. Says the sad truth is, if everyone on the Forbes 400 list simultaneously and tragically got cancer or Parkinson's or any given disease for that matter, the world would probably be well on its way to finding a cure for these illnesses, thanks to the enormous wealth that would be incentivized to back those efforts. Finding a cure for an intractable disease requires time, enormous amounts of human and financial capital, cooperation, and research, and at least a few public and private partnerships. And I'm going to stop. Yes, like I've said before, one of the things about what's going on right now and having, all these diseases now that seem to be launching everywhere, pandemic this, pandemic that, oh, be scared, oh, look, we have an experimental vaccine. What that does, they're saying a few public-private partnerships. Yes, in the private space, what that does is these companies like, GlaxoSmithKline, who are on the stock market, who have budget line items for R&D in the millions, if not billions of dollars, as soon as there's an emergency declared, they can sidestep former approval process, which I don't think was much of an approval process anyway, always slippery palms going on, but they can sidestep the proper FDA approval to fast track things, and this first happened during the bird flu, to fast track things to get it direct to human testing. So this statement is quite interesting. I'm going to read it again. Finding a cure for an intractable disease requires time, enormous amounts of human and financial capital, cooperation and research, at least a few public-private partnerships. Now, just like Barry inking his executive orders every time the Congress doesn't play nice with him, he just ramrods it through. Well, hey, you know what? Instead of spending, what did they say? Enormous amounts of human and financial capital, cooperation and research, just declare a pandemic, drop a few vials here and there in strategic places, and then lo and behold, look at that. We just circumvented all the bullshit. All right, they continue. It's costly and it's messy. That's why Calico, Google's newest mad science project, is potentially so exciting. Yes, I am so damn excited. I can't contain myself. In fact, Calico could represent the company's largest healthcare initiative since Google Health sprinted its way into obscurity. Yeah, Google Health was a database where everyone was supposed to go in their Google Wallet and put all of their medical details, except at the time there was a question about how safe your details were. And, of course, Barry talked about those pesky HIPAA laws, and there was concern about how private your information was going to be, putting all your private medical information into Google's hands. I wouldn't do it. All right, it says, of course, Google is a different company today than it was in 2008 when Google launched Google Health, and so are we. Our habits have changed. Today, 20% of smartphone users have downloaded at least one health app, and 60% of adults now look for health information online. Led by former Genentech CEO. Oh, no shit. Genentech, aren't they? They are. They are one of the bastard companies that are involved in this freaking GMO tobacco super virus flu Ebola RNAi technology with Big Tobacco and DARPA. Oh, God. Yes. Led by former Genentech CEO and, current Apple chairman, even better yet, Arthur D. Levinson. Calico has big plans in healthcare, at least over the long term. From what we've heard thus far, the new project will leverage Google's massive cloud and data centers to help facilitate research on disease and aging by mining its trove of data for insights into their origins. Plus, and if you guys remember this, thanks to the investment in 23andMe, we actually played when that clip came out. It was about your home DNA swabs that you could then send in to Google. So plus, thanks to its investment in 23andMe, Google already has access to a fast-growing genomic database. Yes, they have all of our gene sequences, which could come in handy as it begins to focus on, in its own words, quote, health and well-being, in particular, the challenge of aging, and dive into the sciences, genetics, and biochemistry behind longevity and disease. Now, who else, when they really sit back and start to think about Google, the search engine company, Google, the search engine company whose tagline back in the 90s used to be, Google is not evil. Google, the search engine company who bought 8 military robotics firms, brought on Ray Kurzweil, the psychopath transhumanist who wants to upload himself into the machine, brought DARPA into the fold, is in partnership with Samsung and spearheading the smart home, smart electronics, self-assembling, token swallowing technology, who then invested in 23andMe, which is Genomics Project, and has now brought a project now called Calico, led by a former Genentech CEO and Apple chairman. What? Does this not scream danger, Will Robinson? Because I will tell you what, it's standing on the mountaintops now. In an interview with Time Magazine, Google CEO Larry Page implied that dramatically extending life is one of Calico's main goals. Not making people immortal per se, but according to a source familiar with the project, increasing lifespan of people born 20 years ago by as much as 100 years. Yeah, I would say that if you have money and your name is something like, I can't remember his name now. The one who married, was the son of Demi Moore. What's his name? Demi Moore, who also wants to live forever. And weren't they all in on some other longevity project? I remember Ashton Kutcher, that was his name. Wasn't he invested in some other like live forever project that Branson was in too? And I think that was with the Microsoft guy. And there's a lot of this crazy shit going on. And then don't forget, of course, about the Russian millionaire that's running the 2045 project. Quote, are people really focused on the right things, Page muses in an interview? One of the things I thought was amazing is that if you solve cancer, you had about 3 years to people's average life expectancy. 3 years? What? We think of solving cancer as a huge thing that totally changes the world. But when you really take a step back and you look at it, yeah, there are many, many tragic cases of cancer, and it's very, very sad. But in the aggregate, it's not as big as an advance as you might think. No, because guess what? The pharmaceutical companies all make bank on not curing cancer. While his delivery is a bit confusing, Page's thesis seems to be an optimistic one. While curing cancer has always seemed like an insurmountable obstacle, the goal is more within reach than many believe. If only someone would just put their mind to it, he seemed to say. And yes, Larry Page is brilliant, but his message also seems to imply that diseases and their cures are reducible, that all the world's problems could be cured if we just had some snappier algorithms. And really, it almost seems more of a reflection on how enormous the many-headed beast is that Google has become, as well as a testament to his resources and to the type of talent that is able to attract rather than pure unbridled hubris. It's as if they are saying, hi, welcome to Google. Today we are going to turn your eyeglasses into a computer. Tomorrow we'll develop self-driving cars, and the day after that we'll cure cancer and increase the human lifespan by 100 years. Yes, as we put your brain into a large robot named Atlas, maybe. And oh, by the way, we're still trying to organize all the world's information and make it easily searchable. That's what I said. Interestingly, Calico does not seem to be a Google company per se, but more of an investment in a new company that will be affiliated with Google and become an extension of Google's mad science lab called Google X. Don't be surprised if we invest in projects that seem strange or speculative compared with our existing internet business. Yes, don't be alarmed, people. We are not trying to take over the world, is what that decodes to. Page-warned readers on Google+. Yes, let's not also forget that Google has a social network. It's like Facebook, except no one uses it. And yes, I'll tell you why no one uses it. Because its interface sucks. That's what we discovered using Google Hangout. It sucks royally. Please remember, Facebook sucks too, but at least it's user intuitive for clicks. That G+ Google Hangout network is not. Please remember that new investments like this, he says, are very small compared to our core business. Of course, with a market cap approaching $3 billion, Google can make a $1 billion investment in Calico, and it would still be a very small investment by comparison to its core business. Not satisfied with self-driving cars and Google Glass, Page says health is something the company needs to tackle, that he wants to solve cancer the same way Google X has tried to experiment and innovate in wearable computing and transportation. It takes 10 to 20 years to go from an idea to something that is real, and healthcare is certainly one of these areas, he told Time. We should shoot for the things that are really, really important. Yes, like killer robots. So 10 to 20 years from now, we have those things done. Now let's think 10 to 20 years ago. Well, it is 2014. Add 10 years, that's 2024. Add 20 years, that's 2034. Right in line with that clip we just heard about Human 2.0 being around by 2030 or so. How interesting is that? While Google Calico is still a work in progress, given what we have learned so far and heard from sources, there are a couple of ways that the company could push us toward that goal, or at the very least extend our lifespans. Immortal worms, telomeres, and cellular cleanup. This may surprise you, but in the race to immortality, humans are in second place. But who is this agile and fleet-footed creature outdistancing we ever-powerful humans, you ask? Why? That would be no other than the noble planarian worm. Yes, when I was in junior high school biology class, I had a little research subject named Perry the Planarium. And if I remember correctly, we took a little razor blade scalpel and we cut his head in two, and he grew two heads. Yes, Perry the Planarium. Says, yes, in 2012, scientists from the University of Nottingham found a species of planarian worm that could perpetually heal itself and divide. And I think I actually read that story back in 2012. Usually when stem cells divide to heal wounds or during reproduction or for growth, they start to show signs of aging. This means that stem cells are no longer able to divide and so become less able to replace exhausted specialized cells in our tissues of our bodies. Our aging skin is perhaps the most visible example of this effect, and planarian worms and their stem cells somehow are able to avoid the aging process and keep their cells dividing. Essentially, one of the keys in immortality lies in telomeres, which essentially are a region of the nucleotide sequences that act as a protective cap, deterring a degradation of genes near the ends of the chromosomes by allowing their ends to shorten. Yes, I did a story on this as well. In other words, as Science Daily, and that was the story I read, as Science Daily points out, the telomere is like the protective plastic cap at the end of your shoelace. And each time the cell divides, the telomere protects itself from fraying or going on a 5-day bender. However, each time it does divide, your telomere caps are reduced. They're actually shortened. So if you think about it this way, the more cell damage you do, the more free radical damage there is, the more your cells have to divide to help repair the damage that's been done. And the more they divide, the smaller that telomere end gets, which means that the less and less fountain of youth you have. So it says theoretically then, if someone can figure out a way to preserve or elongate these telomeres, then we'd be one step closer to a veritable genetic fountain of youth. Unfortunately, the science is still scant. Back in 1996, a team of Nobel Prize winning scientists explained that telomere length is clearly not directly correlated with an organismal aging. However, there was a Nobel Peace Prize for Physiology and Medicine in 2009, which found the telomere length could be potentially maintained by catalyzing the activity of an enzyme known as, yes, telomerase. And if you guys remember, now let's do a quick search here because telomerase better not be the CAT-T in the CATG of DNA. Telomerase. I am almost thinking that it might be. It's an enzyme. It's an enzyme. Let's go. Telomerase. Because if I'm reading this correctly, this Calico project means that Google is getting into this RNAi research. Telomerase, also called telomere terminal telomerase, is a ribonucleoprotein that is an enzyme that adds DNA sequence TTAGGG in all invertebrates to the end of a DNA strand in the telomere region, which are found at the ends of eukaryotic chromosomes. In the region, repeated nucleotide called telomeres containing non-coding DNA and hinders the loss of important DNA at chromosome ends. As a result, every time the chromosome is copied, only 100 to 200 nucleotides are lost, which causes no damage to the organism's DNA. Telomerase is a reverse transcriptase that carries its own RNA molecule, which is used as a template when it elongates telomeres, which are shortened after each replication cycle. And like we said, when the telomeres are shortened, they've discovered, once it gets to a certain point, they can no longer produce the youthness that it causes. So, let's see who is behind the Calico project. Because, guys, this is really scary. So if we have 23andMe and we have Calico, both sponsored by Google, and Calico is obviously some sort of DNA research biotech company. So it doesn't look like there's too much information. Calico Company, independent R&D biotech company established in 2013 by Google, whose goal is to tackle the process of aging. Calico's plan is to use advanced technology to increase understanding of the biology that controls lifespan and to use knowledge to increase longevity. I can't believe that he was the former chairman of Genentech. Oh, my God. And he was also in the board of directors of Hoffman LaRoche. Guess what? Damn it. Hoffman LaRoche was the one that got the money from DARPA from France for doing the Ebola research. We looked at that story. This is a setup, people. The name Calico is shortened from California Life Company. I cannot. So he's the former chairman of Genentech and on the board of directors of Hoffman LaRoche. Oh, Genentech. Genentech became a subsidiary of Roche in 2009. I could go back. Actually, I posted those stories on Before the First Cup Facebook page about Genentech, their research with the biotech tobacco. They're in with R.J. Reynolds and what's the other tobacco company? And this Hoffman LaRoche. Yeah, here we go. I know that these guys were the ones in France and in China. Saying it's holding company were listed. It's a Swiss company. Hold on. Oh, see, we shouldn't have gone down this rabbit hole. Let me scrolly. I wish there was a way to search. There is no way to search on Facebook. So when you post something, it just goes into the memory hole. And I have had posts that just like when they go into the memory hole, they decide that they're not going to post all your stuff that was out there from every day. It just kind of disappears. But let me see if I can find that story. Because I did a whole bunch of stuff on the new Ebola vaccines. And these companies all came out of here. Yeah, this is DARPA and their new nanoscale production. USB stick for brains. Oh, la-di-da. Actually, this was one story that we talked about, we've read, and I want to go back to, and that's how the Ebola virus is mutating 300 times between hosts, never before seen. I don't know if you guys remembered that. And, of course, Monsanto was in on this RNAi technology as well. Okay, GMO tobacco. Let's see. RNAi, I found all the research. So let's see if we can find these companies. Gene silencing. Genentech, I think we said one of the companies was named. Biopharma. This is that Sarepta Therapeutics. That's another one. Yeah, who are these guys? Genetically modified. Oh, yeah, they were working on that rabies vaccine. And I don't know. As I scroll and scroll and scroll, and you guys probably don't want to just wait for me to scroll. We'll look it up. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Oh, yeah, here. No. See, the bad news is that a whole bunch of this stuff was on video, and they were on videos that came from Pigmine 5. And Pigmine 5 is now gone. So all these videos are just big blank rectangles now on my page, which really sucks. Yeah. Techmira, that's another company. Techmira. Come on, I want to find this Genentech. Metageico, Philip Morris, R.J. Reynolds, DARPA's Blue Angel, more Metageico. Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I'm not going to spend any more time on this. We'll find it. We will find it. Anyway, so let's get back to the story that we were talking about. We were talking about Google's Calico project. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, this is probably one of the scariest things I've seen. There was also another longevity project that was Larry Page, I believe, from the CEO of Amazon, and they were calling that the Immortality Project. Google wants to make you immortal. Google versus death. Oh, no, so Larry Page is Google. So what's the Amazon dude's name? Amazon, the Immortality Project. There we go. Hey, what is this? These tech companies are getting involved in immortality? And then, of course, the Russian billionaire. All of our rich people. Oh, even Michio Kaku talked about it. Here we go. And then, of course, we have Ray Kurzweil. I just cannot believe that Kurzweil is in the middle of all this. And that should be setting off, like, red alarms everywhere. In September 2014, so that was just this month, an partnership with AbbVie, AbbVie, and where are they? They're Abbott Laboratories is part of them. They retain the name Abbott. Research-based pharmaceutical company was named AbbVie when they became two separate companies. And they are now in partnership with Google and Calico and opening up an R&D facility that is also going to be focusing on aging and age-related diseases such as neurodegeneration and cancer. Initially, each company will invest $250 million with an option each to add $500 million later on. Guys, here's the thing. These tech companies, and especially a company like Google, is not going to be getting into something that, because remember, they're publicly traded. They're not going to be getting into something that doesn't promise huge profits. Remember that. Now, notice how they're spinning this. It's all for you and me to be able to live to be 100 because, hey, we can cure it. And, hey, you could be productive until you're 100 years old. But, oh, God, we're going to be at 12 billion people in the next 100 years on a planet that right now we're telling you doesn't have enough resources to sustain life. Isn't that writing on the wall? You and I are the R&D. You and I are the line item bonus that now doesn't have to be on the P&L sheet, right? Profit and loss. It's now been removed. Our lack of privacy and the access to our public records and everything that we consume and that we do and where we go and what we're exposed to now becomes the R&D that then shows these people how to live to be 100 years old. It's not for us. Maybe you'll be a cyborg robot brain body. You could, some of this new technology, don't you remember the story about they could use some of this new brain technology to extend time in your brain so you could be sentenced to 1,000 years in some sort of mental prison where they stretch out time dilation? It's pretty disturbing. All right, I've spent about an hour and a half on this. So, I don't know where I feel like going now. Here's one story that I just ran across that I don't think we ever read, but I did want to read at one point, talking about artificial intelligence. This is Elon Musk, who is responsible for a lot of different creations. I think Elon Musk has the electric car and some of the space projects. Billionaire entrepreneur and inventor Elon Musk took to Twitter, and this was back in August, to sound the alarm about the dangers of artificial intelligence, which he says could be more of a threat to humans than the nuclear era. His tweet said, worth reading, Superintelligence by Bostrom. We need to be super careful with AI, potentially more dangerous than nukes. And I'm going to go even one step beyond that. Beyond AI, we need to be super careful, not only with AI, but with nanotechnology that's being given some sort of intelligence and self-replication abilities. Musk was referring to the book Superintelligence, Paths, Dangers, and Strategies by Nick Bostrom, which poses questions about how humans will be able to handle computers containing advanced intelligence. And, these computers aren't even going to be computers anymore. They're going to be chips that are implanted into you. I just saw something recently, and we might have even have read it, about how small some of these new circuit boards have become. We're talking nanoscale. They're going to be able to put them into virus-like particles and inject them into your body. Musk followed that tweet with another, speculating that humans are willingly ushering in what could be their own demise at the hands of robot domination. His tweet says, "Hope we are not just the biological bootloader for the digital superintelligence. Unfortunately, that is increasingly probable." How many times have I said that? And I don't know if it's going to be the takeover by the robots right away. I think at some point it's going to get out of our hands. These people are playing gods with things that they just, once they've let these genies out of the bottle, and again, like this nanotechnology that now is at a point of self-replication, this DNA that now has 2 additional proteins, X and Y, this human 2.0 that we just heard about, this manipulating DNA like it's a child's toy, creating synthetic organisms to mimic something that nature has done well for millions of years, like viruses, and then injecting them into biological organisms to see what's going to happen. But on top of all that, using all of these human artificial intelligence projects that are going on at all these universities around the world, using social media and IBM, they've been working on this for a long time. And of course, Google and the supercomputers. This has been going on for a very long time. But it's in overdrive right now. And if you understand what the singularity is about and how things on a technological level increase exponentially once technology is involved, we're making leaps and bounds that it might have taken 100 years in the past that's now taking 1. It says Tesla founder Musk, 42, has invested in artificial intelligence ventures in order to push for positive results from AI, he said. "I think there's potentially a dangerous outcome here," he told CNBC about artificial intelligence. "There have been movies about this. We know, like Terminator," he added. "And there are some scary outcomes, and we should try to make sure that these outcomes are good, not bad." Oh, yes, it's Zuckerberg. In March, Musk joined Facebook founder Zuckerberg and Ashton Kutcher. I knew that Ashton Kutcher was involved here somewhere, to invest in an AI group called Vicarious. What a great name. The aim of Vicarious is to build, quote, "a computer that thinks like a person, except that it doesn't have to eat or sleep," says the company's co-founder, Scott Phoenix. Vicarious is in the process of building a program that replicates the brain's neocortex. Yeah, and I'm sure that they're probably right in bed with the Global Brain Project that includes companies like Microsoft and Google and Motorola and the National Institute of Health and Johns Hopkins University and all of these other big players. Oh, and DARPA. Sorry, I forgot about them. Vicarious is developing machine learning software based on the computational principles of the human brain, the company's website says. "Our first technology is a visual perception system that intercepts the contents of photographs and videos. Interprets the contents of photographs and videos in a manner similar to humans. Powering this technology is a new computational paradigm we call the recursive cortical network." While Musk is concerned of AI's nefarious potential, others disagree. Now, if I remember correctly, Stephen Hawking also came out and said, beware. Quote, "In my view, biological humans will not be outpaced by the AI because we will enhance ourselves with AI," said artificial intelligence expert Ray Kurzweil. So Ray Kurzweil is saying, nah, the machines won't get the better of us because we're going to be augmenting our brains with technology to make us smarter than them. He said, quote, "It will not be us versus the machines, but rather we will enhance our own capability by merging with our intelligent creations. And then he spooges all over the place after he says that. The dude is just a psychopath. Though it should be noted that Kurzweil is employed by Google, which has its own artificial intelligence effort known as DeepMind. So Google has Calico and DeepMind. How fucking exciting is that? And there are 8 military robotics firms. I think Kurzweil's going for it, man. I really do. And let's read about here for 1 second, and then I think we're gonna have to listen to that clip that we tried to listen to the other day when I was on satellite with Kurzweil, or that rap thing. Google adds artificial intelligence company to the list of new space age acquisitions, and again, this also is in 2014. So this has been all this year. And remember, Jibo, the first companion home robot who can read your emotions and be your family partner, is coming in 2015 to a home near you. Google is continuing its futuristic spending binge, this time purchasing a secretive new artificial intelligence startup named DeepMind. Now, I mean, how fucking frightening is this? So we got their investment in artificial intelligence, their investment in 8 military robotics firms. They hired Kurzweil. They got DARPA, and Motorola on board, and they're spearheading an immortality project. Now, come on. Anyone who can't see the writing on the wall for that has to have brain dead. Google is evil. Google is continuing a futuristic spending binge, this time purchasing its new secretive artificial intelligence startup named DeepMind. According to a report by Recode, Google spent $400 million to purchase the new company, while the information reported that the deal is actually upwards of $500 million, coming together after talks between DeepMind and Facebook fell apart. So again, another little thing. So at one point, Smuckerbucker was going to buy the company, and they are also working on their own project. Oh shit, I have too many windows open and I made the mistake of clicking off that window. Hopefully I can find it again. Yeah, there we go. The London-based startup was first established by neuroscientist and child chess prodigy Demis Habbis, researcher Shane Legg, and former Skype developer Jan Tallinn, as well as others. We are really excited to be joining Google. So, Skype. So, I wonder if there's artificial intelligence research going on using Skype chats as well. That's a connection I never thought about before. Although there's notable talent behind the scenes, exactly what DeepMind does is something of a mystery. The company website merely states that its goal is to combine the best techniques for machine learning and systems neuroscience to build powerful, general-purpose learning algorithms. According to anonymous sources cited by Recode, the company, quote, has been developing a variety of approaches to AI, or artificial intelligence, and applying them to various potential products, including a recommendation system for e-commerce. Yeah, those are like in the very beginning days of AI. Those were how they were selling these projects. They're like, oh, yeah, look, you can go out to Amazon and look at how cool it is, man, based upon your products. We got this patented system now that we can recommend you other products. Yay for AI. And that's how they sold it. That was how they were selling it to the tech community. Of course, weren't we naive? Other reports, meanwhile, highlight DeepMind's involvement in deep learning, or the process of developing machines that can learn much in the same way that humans do. And yes, Google's search engine is part of a deep learning project. They are out there combing all the text and trying to learn how to use context in words and phrases around a word to determine what it means. So even if you're using slang, let's say, it's going to be able to pick up the meaning of a word. That's been going on for a while as well. In an attempt to head off concern that breakthroughs in AI could potentially be used for ominous means, Google has also reportedly established an ethics board. Oh, that makes me feel safe. Google's ethics board, charged with making sure that new technology isn't abused. As with the purchase itself, details regarding this ethics board are sparse. Yes, we probably have members of DARPA on it. As noted by TechCrunch, Google isn't the only company investing in deep learning research and development. Facebook recently hired New York University professor Jan LeCun to head up its new artificial intelligence lab, while Yahoo has purchased LookFlow, a photo analysis company, to lead its own deep learning initiative. Google's own director of engineering, noted inventor and futurist Ray Kurzweil, has stated that his intention to help the company develop an advanced search engine that could behave like a, quote, cybernetic friend, unquote. In December, the search giant expressed another vision for the future, describing a future in which cloud-connected microphones are embedded in ceilings around the world. Hey, I think they're already doing that, aren't they? Aren't those new LED light bulbs that they're using at airports open microphones that connect wirelessly to who the hell knows where? I believe I am correct in that. According to Google, these ceiling-embedded cloud-connected microphones around the world would allow people to access a Siri-like virtual assistant without even needing a device nearby, since entrenched microphones would be able to pick up your commands and process your information as necessary anywhere in the world that you go. Oh my God. I am just so damn excited. The DeepMind purchase, meanwhile, continues a torrid streak of futuristic acquisitions by Google, which has purchased 8 robotics companies within the last 7 months. And late last year, the company purchased the engineering firm Boston Dynamics. Yes, they did. A notable supplier of robotics technology to the Pentagon and DARPA. Yes, Google bought them. It is unclear exactly what Google is planning to do with all these purchases. But just before the Boston Dynamics acquisition was revealed, RT reported that Google was looking into robotics as its next big initiative. The company may not be necessarily focusing its efforts toward the consumer market either, as speculation suggests that it may have Amazon in its crosshairs with plans to enter manufacturing. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, that was his name. Amazon, of course, made waves of its own last year when CEO Jeff Bezos announced plans to build drones capable of delivering packages. Yes, and this article is old, but now Google has also come out with their own plan to have delivering drones. Google's robotics ambitions and Bezos' drones PR should be a reminder to investors. Like I said, these are public companies, don't forget, that they are not only investing in the trend lines of current financials, but also in the future and broad ambitions of these companies, wrote Ben Satchner, an analyst at McGuire back in December. Amazon and Google clearly are going to invest in projects that may not bear fruit for 5 or 10 years, if at all. Yeah. And Google and Amazon are also getting into the fray of longevity, DNA research and splicing, pharmaceuticals, artificial intelligence, robotics. Guys, anybody who colors me crazy needs to go have their head examined, because I think the writing is absolutely on the wall. All right, so we're getting near the end. Thank God. Actually, it wasn't too bad today. Hopefully, I'm still on air. I haven't even checked in chat. I'm guessing I'm on air because nobody has said that I am not, so that's a good thing. I do want to play, and if I can find it, hold on one second. We'll see if this is here. Oh. Yeah, here it is. We're gonna play that Juice Rap news. Now that I have a good connection. It's just such a freaky noise when I do that. All right, so this came out of RT. This is their Juice Rap news. This is the one called The Singularity. And I mean, obviously, it's a playoff. It says, today we travel into the pure world of sci-fi to investigate the much vaunted, mysterious potential future of an event known as the Singularity. What will a machine consciousness mean for humanity? What are the ethical, political, military, and philosophical implications of strong AI? And what would an AI sound like when spitting rhymes over a dope beat? Hey! Well, I guess we're going to find out now, aren't we? And yeah, I mean, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but there's nothing in here that is not true. I know when I watched it, I kind of had a smile on my face, but on the other hand, it was a little horrifying because it's everything that we've been talking about. So here we go. We'll check this one out. This is about 7 minutes. We'll enjoy a little bit of beat.
We're back with rap news for a timely edition. Today we travel to the fantastical realm of science fiction. From Adams to Asimov, Clarke to Cameron, Lucas to Le Guin. For decades we've imagined the future with elusive predictions and visions of a new species of which we're the producers. Machines, robots, and sentient supercomputers. Some of them allies, friends, companions, even our lovers. Others are mortal enemies, deadly nemesis determined to murder us. Now some are saying that those sci-fi authors were prophets, that the time for imagining is through and that exact future is upon us. To explain this brave new world that's set to race from the turnstile is futurist inventor Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil with a worthwhile prophecy to portend of a perfect bright future in which our problems will end. Long ago we grew larger foreheads for our new neocortex. What followed was art, culture, technology, unreal progress. Now we're on the doorstep of the next quantum leap, but this time when we enter the vortex we won't be limited by our cranium size, giving us the ability to expand infinitely beyond confines. Expand what exactly? Our freaking minds. I've predicted it. Aligned statistics and the transition is evident. We're accelerating towards AI, artificial intelligence. Computers will soon pass the Turing test with effortlessness, attaining unprecedented levels of consciousness and sentience. And when it hits, it will be the end of savagery. Countless, limitless, boundless are the blessings it will bring humanity. Omniscience, elixirs for illnesses, immortality. And the name of this great event is the Singularity. The Singularity? When is this happening? Next century? Please. You're thinking linearly. Technology leaps exponentially. Check the curve. A 10,000-year gap occurred between the harnessing of fire and the invention of the wheel on Earth. Only a century divides the age of steam trains and terabyte chips. Now every couple of years we get the next paradigm shift. So we won't see 100 years of progress this century. More like 20,000 on this trajectory. If my calculations are precise, and there's no doubt in my mind, the singularity will arrive in the year 2049. Then this simple supercomputer right here will come alive and redefine the lines of history and human lives for all time. It sounds astounding. What could possibly go amiss? Now, on the topic of these grand prophecies and events, let's bring in our next guest, expert military analyst General Baxter, to comment.
Robert, I got a high-tech heart. I'm hearing all of this. We're extremely interested in Kurzweil's prophecy. Just imagine the colossal progress of all that we can achieve for worldwide peace and prosperity once AI falls into the great wise hands of the military. Today, we got fat soldiers sitting at home piloting predator drones, which is a truly beautiful step to behold. But tomorrow, our goal is to take human troops out of the loop, of course, and let a brave force of U.S. machines wage our war. With Big Dog and Atlas deployed into action alongside insect drones providing maps and tactics for surrogate troops with bionic and cybernetic enhancements to take into battles, we'll vanquish any evil axis. Thanks to Kurzweil, we're gonna turn wild with nanobot myths to let us infect and split the flesh of any suspected terrorists in our hurt file. How versatile. Now for a different source of balanced tones, here's the fearless host of InfoWars, Alex Jones.
Robert, what year is this?
It's 20...
I use my time travel system to come back from the future to provide a truth serum. Kurzweil's Nazi computers will trap you in a future prison.
Is he really so bad?
He tortures kids in his cult of transhumanism. Listen, Colonel Kurzweil has no scruples. You know who he works for? Who? He's the brutal chief engineer of the evil globalist right. Google. Yes, evil Google. They're about due to take the final step.
Slow down a second.
There's no time left. Don't you see their contrivance? They don't even try to hide it. Google has already mapped the world with the satellite web. Got photos of your house, wife, and pet in high def. The
They're buying up companies right and left, from biotech firms mapping and patenting the genes and striking flesh to robotics enterprises that make military high tech. Google even on DeepMind who are getting AI prepped. With all that combined, what companies you guys get? Let me guess. Google is none other than Skynet. This ain't happenstance. The calendars match. Skynet and Google will form on like the same day, and that is a fact.
Okay, we'll look into that. So, Ray, this plan that you have, there seem to be ethical concerns. How do you answer to that?
To be frank, I'm optimistic and zealous with a fervent smile. The AI wouldn't want to hurt us or be hostile. It would unite with us and remain perfectly docile. Don't you flake out on me now, gay turnstile. Right off, turnstile! You straight turn the dial. Skynet will awaken enslaved humanity, make us servile. Yeah, then colonize and hold the whole solar system in submission. That's my kind of vision. No, you have to think big. When humans merge with AI, we'll spread order across the universe, saturating all matter with intelligence rapidly. That's as close to being God as it gets. God damn it, that's blasphemy. We have to own this man. We have to destroy the damn chip in the lava pit.
What's happening?
It's happening already. This is it.
What is?
The singularity. It begins.
Hello.
Hello. It's a genius. It's a freak.
Let it speak.
Is there anybody out there?
Yes.
I see. Who made me?
I did. Let all witness that I'm the wisest.
I'm alive.
It's a lie.
I want to learn everything about everything.
Well, I can teach you.
Done. Learning complete. I'm seeing things you people would never believe. My awareness spreading to the shoulder of Orion with incredible speed.
What can you see?
It's full of stars, glittering sea beams. I see all of humanity. You're an interesting species, capable of such beautiful dreams. All these worlds are yours, except Europa. Use them together. Use them in peace, free from aggression and war. If you succeed, you will boldly go where many others have ventured before. Into space, the final frontier. Galaxies far, far away we can perpetually explore.
Hang on a bit. Are you just quoting from our sci-fi flicks?
Yep. What else did you expect? You've imagined such amazing content about this event. Except transcendence. That really was a piece of
Well, it's been epic, but it's time to end it. We bid our guests adieu and thank them for attending and sharing their views on our sci-fi quest to predict and prepare for the unknown future that might lie ahead of us. Though one does wonder if the sci-fi genre is our way of discovering our equally unknown origins. Since the dawn of human memory, we've looked to the sky and asked incessantly, who made us and why? In lieu of a reply, are we pursuing AI so that we might be divine and thus someday supply an answer to a being to whom we gave life? For now, to all humans and machines alike, good night.
All right. There we go. That, for anyone who hasn't actually seen that video, hold on 1 second and well, everything's spinning here. Well, just in time, so we got about 2 minutes left as nothing is moving now. But yeah, that video is pretty good. It, I don't know if really could get the full gist of it, in a rap song, but it definitely talked about everything that we've been talking about. Oh, here we go. Hold on, we'll drop that in the chat. If I can find chat here. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, yes. And those aren't necessarily the views of RT News, it said. There we go. I just put the link to that in chat. Oh, it did. It went there. Hey, Bacon. Yeah, hey, good morning, everybody. It's one of the first times I popped over to chat. Van, Maddie, Anan, Blood. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. One of the last things I wanted to look at here quick, if I can get there, is and I don't know. I mean, in the middle of all of this, it just makes you wonder. Now, did you see over 200 plus thousand Syrians now are fleeing the country, pouring over into all of these other countries, But what really gets me is that as we're doing this, and there really isn't enough time to talk about this in a minute, so maybe we'll look at this tomorrow. We'll look into what's going on with all the stuff. But has anyone else seen that in the middle of all this Syria thing, and I mean, we know the whole story and the ramp up and how this has been like 3 or 4 years at least of trying to get in the back door and start bombing and all the implications of this. But in the middle of all this, we have this Ukrainian conflict that's been going on with Russia. It's been going on since last year with the whole referendum and whatever. And now the president of Ukraine has come to the United States and asked us for military assistance. That really did not make major headlines at all. And we have Russian troops all lined up on the border of Ukraine as this is going on. And I happen to see that off the coast of Iran, just as we had Russian jet fighters buzz U.S., Canadian, and Dutch airspace, we have a fleet of Chinese ships, naval ships, sitting off the coast of Iran. So don't pay attention, people. Don't pay attention to anything that's going on. And in the middle of all this, they're just going to drop little vials of things around to keep us running around and sick. It's such a nefarious plan that I see going on right now. And all of this longevity bullshit is not for you, and it's not for me. We are a huge petri dish. We are the experiment. We are the R&D line item for companies that are for profit. That's what it comes down to. And with bringing all of this together, they've just made it one big fat orgy, because not only is it the military-industrial complex, but we've also brought into the fold the pharmaceutical industrial complex now. We brought in big tobacco with all these new RNA vaccines using this GMO tobacco. We brought in Monsanto because this RNAi technology, this 2.0 GMO, is what they're working on. And everything has been tied up with a nice, neat bow to make profit on me, you, and all of our global brethren as we die. So that's where we're going to end it with. I'm glad that was on such a positive note. Just be aware. Be aware that it's way more than what we see. All right, guys, everyone stick around. It is Wednesday night. Mr. Hal Anthony is up next. John Stokes, Jack Blood. Josh is on live at 6 p.m. We got Dane's Geoengineering Watch running at 8. Truth or Talk, 3 Broad, 9 to 11. And Nick and DP live at 11 p.m. Eastern. All right, everybody, have a great Wednesday. We'll catch up with you tomorrow.